Namaste. Welcome all to Candid Convos, a thought leadership initiative of LeadFact Solutions. In the fourth edition, we are privileged to have Martin Gilbraith with us. Martin started his career in 1986 in grassroots community development work in India, Africa, and Middle East as an international volunteer. He has been providing facilitation support, training, and professional consulting to clients since 1997. Before going freelance in October 2012, he served as Chief Executive of Institute of Cultural Affairs ICA at UK. He then went on to become a 4-year term president of ICA International at global level from 2012 to 2016. From 2018 to 2022, he was a member of ICAI Global Top Advisory Group. Martin is also involved with International Association of Facilitators IAF since 1997. He was global chair from 2008 till 2012 for IAF. He got inducted into IAF Hall of Fame in 2014. Martin is a certified professional facilitator master CPF M from IAF and certified top facilitator CTF from ICA. He is a lead trainer and licensed provider of ICA's top facilitation training across the globe. He is one of the contributing authors of the book The Power of Facilitation. Come, let us meet and interact with him directly. Thanks, Martin, for joining us today. Yeah.
Thank you, Ramesh, and namaste and namaskar.
Thanks. And your career profile, Martin, as I was glancing through your career profile, I was just wondering, generally the tendency for professionals will be like to start with a corporate career, be there for some time, and then get into volunteering. But in your profile, I could notice, pleasantly surprised, like you started your career in international volunteering. So how come you got the interest in volunteering to start a career? Martin, what is the trigger and how you joined ICA? Can you just share some interesting perspectives?
Thank you. Yes, I'll be glad to. It's interesting how you asked the question. I hadn't quite thought of it this way before, but in fact, I took exactly the trajectory that you described, but I guess I was just quite quick in moving from my corporate career to volunteering even before the career had really begun.
Right.
I had studied business studies as an undergraduate, and I did work for a couple of placements as part of my undergraduate degree in corporate life. And I enjoyed my business studies career, but I pretty quickly decided by the end of it that I did not want to go straight into management in business, which is what I was trained for. I decided to take a year out and discover the world and discover myself. And I chose to go volunteering in order to do that. As it turned out, my year out turned to be the first year of the rest of my life, rather than a year doing something else. Yeah. I didn't realize it at the time, but after spending a year as an international volunteer in a community project in India, I came back to Britain and found that nobody could really understand what I'd experienced and how I'd been changed, except other people who'd volunteered in community projects around the world like myself. And as a result, I got involved with ICA in the UK when I got back, and I wound up staying involved ever since in various ways.
Great, Martin. So how was your introduction to ICA? Like, were there some inspiration for you to join ICA, or it just came on your way and you took it?
As it happens, my sister was a volunteer before I was. She volunteered with ICA in Côte d'Ivoire in West Africa. I think in probably 1985. And when I began talking about taking a year out and going traveling, she said, oh, don't just go traveling, do something more interesting than that. Why don't you volunteer, embed yourself in local culture and learn something about where you're going rather than just traveling. And that's what I did.
Wow. So you got trigger from home. There was a trigger for you.
That's right. My sister was
Okay.
actually there before me, and she's been involved with ICA as well since, but not to quite such a strong degree, not for quite so long.
Sure. That's interesting. So, and your early days in India, Africa, and Middle East, Martin, can you just share some interesting experiences, particularly in Indian context, that will be of interest to us?
Sure. So I volunteered in India. I was in India for a year. In actual fact, I spent about 6 months volunteering with ICA India and about 6 months traveling. I did do a lot of traveling all over the country, on trains mostly, and sometimes buses.
Okay.
One flight in all of that time. And certainly it opened my eyes to India, to the world, and to myself, which was what I'd hoped. I volunteered in a village community project near Pune, about an
Yeah.
hour and a half south of Pune, in Maharashtra state. In actual fact, when I arrived, I didn't really understand all of this at the time, but when I arrived, ICA was ending its role in this community. I was a little disappointed when I got there. I found ICA didn't seem to be doing very much. I
Okay.
learned later that that was because all of the work they'd been doing was already now being managed by local community associations. And ICA was actually on its way out, which was a good thing.
Okay.
As a result of that, after spending 4 months in the village, not really finding very much for myself to do as an international volunteer that didn't even speak the language, I learned a lot, and I learned some Marathi,
Okay.
but I didn't get very far with it. I then went traveling for a couple of months, and when I came back, ICA had pretty much finished in that village, and I went to work with ICA in their office in Mumbai. And I spent 2 months there before traveling again and covering some more of the country. So the work I was doing was very much grassroots community development. I think I was there was one other foreigner in the village project when I was there, but he was traveling a lot of the time. I
Right.
had Indian colleagues, mostly from the village and from other parts of India. And we would work with local community associations. I can't remember now what they're called, but doing all sorts of what they called comprehensive human development, working in all sorts of aspects of community development. And the approach that we took was very people-centered, very participatory. That was the whole point. And facilitation is how we operated internally in ICA, and it still is. And it's how we work with people in communities to bring about change, just as we work with people in organizations in the same way. After being a volunteer with ICA in India, I returned to England. I worked for a charity based in London for a couple of years, which was funding projects in Africa.
Right.
And part of the reason I got that job is because they were funding ICA projects in Africa, including in Zimbabwe and Kenya and Egypt. And as a result of working in that charity, I got to know ICA Egypt, and I got to know when a vacancy came available there, and I volunteered a second time and went and worked with ICA Egypt.
Okay.
And in Egypt, I went as a volunteer and wound up staying for 6 years and joining the staff and becoming employed and staying for 6 years. And I became much more fluent in Arabic than I ever did in Marathi, I'm sorry to say.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Okay. Learning language is always good, Martin, whatever it is. Yeah. It's good. Yeah.
I don't really regard myself as a linguist, but I enjoy learning languages. I'm in Spain right now. I'm now spending part of my year in Spain, and I'm enjoying learning Spanish and also Catalan because I'm in Catalonia, in
Okay.
the northeast.
Okay. Great. That's an interesting journey what you had in Africa, India, and Middle East. You said you were somewhere in Dubai or Saudi Arabia.
No, not in the Gulf. I was in Egypt.
Egypt. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I lived and worked in Egypt for 6 years.
Right.
I began in a grassroots village project, like I did in India. This was about 2 hours south of Cairo in
Okay.
Beni Suef Governorate. And I traveled in the Middle East to some extent while I was living there. although my work was all in Egypt. Since I've been freelance, since 2012, I've also traveled and worked in the Middle East as well, in Palestine and Lebanon and one or two other places as well, Morocco, at least.
Okay, great. Martin, incidentally, I worked in Middle East for 3.5 years, long back in my career.
Did you?
So yeah, yes, I was in Oman, Muscat for 3.5 years. See, there I had an opportunity of working with Egyptians. Very nice people to move with. It was a good experience that I had with them.
Excellent. Ahsan nas, they say in Egyptian Arabic. It means the best people.
Yes. Great. So, and your association with IAF started way back in 1997. Almost 27 years, Martin. So, how was your association with IAF, and how different is ICA from IAF?
It's an interesting question. I'm often asked that, and not many people these days know or remember that ICA and IAF do have common roots. Yep. IAF was actually founded by a network of ICA facilitators who had gained their facilitation experience in ICA, mostly in local communities initially, and then in other kinds of organizations. And when they went freelance from ICA, they quickly decided they wanted an international association to be part of, an international association of facilitators, and that's how IAF came about. So I was in Egypt at that time in the early 90s, and I was working in village work, not as a professional facilitator. So I wasn't involved with it right at the very beginning. But as soon as I returned to England, I came back to England in 95 from Egypt and did a master's degree, first of all, and then I began to work with ICA UK. And at that time, I decided it was time to get involved in facilitation and in the facilitation profession. And that's when I started attending IAF conferences. So my first conference was in 97 in England. And I became a member a little while after that. The big differences between ICA and IAF is that ICA uses facilitation as a tool for community and personal and social transformation. And ICA is a global network of non-profit organizations around the world, whereas IAF is an association of individual professional facilitators. So IAF is agnostic about particular facilitation methods and approaches, whereas ICA developed its own approach called technology of participation. So ICA is very method specific and very purpose specific as well. And it provides training in its own methodology, the top methods. Yep. Whereas IAF is all about facilitation, but regardless of method, regardless of topic or purpose. And IAF does not provide training. It accredits others who provide training. IAF provides accreditation instead.
Yep. So can we also say, as the focus was more towards corporates and more of the organized sector, then IAF came to place to focus on that, and ICA towards rural and development world. Is it right if we say that, Martin?
I think it's partly right. However, as I say, IAF was founded by facilitators with community facilitation background. I think part of the reason they founded IAF was in order to go beyond the community sector and to attract people from other sectors as well, including corporate, but also government, education, technology, all sorts of sectors. I think the intention was to focus not on the sector, but to focus on the practice and the profession. So I think it was never about corporate instead of community. It was about corporate and everything else as well as community. I think the first major influx of facilitators into IAF from outside community sector was actually from IT. It was IT facilitators who were among the first to realize that your product or service is not going to work unless you involve the users in its design. And I'm very happy to say that IAF has diversified and grown greatly in the years since.
So when you say IT, it is, you mean information technology?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay, okay. That's interesting. And Martin, coming to your book, one of the contributing authors for the book Power of Facilitation. See there, you have chosen along with the co-author about the topic communication. See, of all the topics, why you thought communication is important, or why you chose that?
Sure. So the book, The Power of Facilitation, was the brainchild or the initiative of Kimberly Bain, who was my successor, I think, as chair of IAF. I actually came to the project later than most of the contributors. I learned of the project, the book project, when I was talking with Kimberly at IF conference in Ottawa, I think. I'm
Right.
not sure what year this was, 2016 or something like that. And she said, we've got all these authors and visual practitioners to contribute articles to this book. It's really exciting. I said, oh, fantastic. Do you have room for another? Do you have room for another chapter? Because I have an idea. And she said, yes, sure, tell me about it. And I said, well, I've been working with this friend and colleague, Michael Ambiorn,
Right.
for some years, exploring the interface, the intersection between facilitation and communication. Would you like a chapter on that? So that's how the chapter came about. And the reason that Michael and I got interested in this topic is because we had met when he was my client in London. He's Danish, but had been living in London for some time when we met. He was working for the RSA, the Royal Society of Arts, a 250-year-old Enlightenment organization seeking to promote social innovation, essentially. They have a fellowship of several thousand fellows or members in the UK and around the world, and he was the head of member engagement or fellow engagement. And I did some facilitation for him and his team, and also some facilitation training. And so we got to know each other through working together in that context. And at the time, I was chair of IAF, and he was chair of IABC, the International Association of Business Communicators.
Right.
And he came from a comms background. I came from a facilitation background. We got talking about how much potential there is for facilitators and communicators to learn from each other, as well as work together, and also how much potential there could be for IF and IABC to connect with each other and to collaborate and learn from each other. And so we initiated several different things that we did together. I attended some of their conferences. He attended some of ours. We did some online workshops exploring this field, the potential for collaboration and learning between the two. And some of the outputs of some of that work went into the chapter. And some of the people that we met were through that work were interviewed in the chapter. So that's where the idea came from.
Great. So the framework of IABC that you have explained in your book, ECCASE. That's interesting framework. Would you like to share briefly about that, Martin, and how it is connected to facilitation?
Sure. I'm not so familiar with the framework myself. It's the framework that IABC uses as the basis of its accreditation, in the same way as we have the core competencies as the basis of the IAF accreditation. And when we were looking for a structure for the chapter, Michael suggested, why don't we focus the chapter on how facilitation can support communicators as a means of getting more communications professionals interested in facilitation. So we took the framework that would be familiar with communicators and looked at each element of the framework and gave some examples and illustrations of how facilitation can contribute to the work of a professional communicator in each of those areas. So you would have to read the book or look at one of the online sessions I did with Michael for a more nuanced explanation of the framework. But that's where the framework came from, and and how we chose to use it in the chapter.
Okay. And I also saw that you also referred to Rebecca's book Nimble, where she very nicely articulated about improvisation and orchestration, and we have very nicely blended it in that model. It was very good.
I attended a improvisation session led by Rebecca with a colleague. I don't remember who she was working with in the session, but that was at the same conference where I met Kimberly, I think.
Okay.
So I was doing a lot of online webinars myself at that sort of time, and had Rebecca lead an online webinar with me talking about the book when it was published. So it was very fresh in our minds as we were writing the chapter. It's a fantastic book. I do recommend it.
Exactly. Yep. And coming to top facilitation methods, Martin, of ICA, see two most most sought after or most talked about methods: PSP, participatory strategy planning, and ORED. So can you briefly tell your experience of how you could make breakthrough innovation or intervention by using these two methods?
Sure. So top methods have a very long pedigree. ICA began, depending on what you regard as the beginning, ICA began in the 1950s, 1960s in the United States and went global in the 70s through its work in grassroots human development, including in India from the early 1970s and many other parts of the world, and developed this methodology, the technology of participation, initially working with local people in local communities. But then in the 1980s and subsequently, ICA got wise to the fact that the methods, the approach works just as well in all sorts of other groups and contexts, as well as in local communities. So even from the 1980s, when I was in India, there was a team of ICA India doing facilitation on a fee-for-service basis, working with clients. One of the big clients at the time was the Taj Mahal hotel group, I recall, and Tata, I think, was another one. I wasn't involved at that time in the facilitation work, but professional facilitators were providing professional facilitation for clients right from the 1980s and possibly earlier with ICA. The methods are at the same time very simple and very complex. The foundation of the whole methodology is the ORED framework. ICA Canada has published a lot of books about the methodology, and one of the more recent ones is called Getting to the Bottom of Top by Wayne and Joe Nelson, late Wayne Nelson and his wife Jo. And I recommend that very highly. ORED is a model of how we as human beings, how we think clearly when we think clearly, and how we experience life and process our experience and come to conclusions and decisions as a result. And being a model of human process, it makes a very, on the surface, very simple but very powerful model to use to diagnose human process when human beings are interacting in groups and in teams, but also as a means of designing human process. If you want to design an intentional facilitation process in order to help a group be more effective. So the core methods are the focused conversation method, which is the simplest manifestation of the ORED model. And then there's consensus workshop, there's action planning, there's strategic planning, there's historical scanning. There are multiple others as well, but those are the core methods. And one of the things that I find most powerful about the methodology is that you can do a great deal of facilitation with nothing but top methods. But also you can use top methods in conjunction with more or less any other methodology. You really don't have to choose whether to use top instead of something else. You can use top as well as whatever else you choose to use. ORED in particular works in conjunction with everything and can add value to everything.
Yeah, great. See, no, the practice of ORED, one area where Even it's more like, I'm the learning phase, like distinguishing between reflective and interpretive. Reflective, we say like it's more from the heart, and interpretive is more from the head. So that is where,
That's right.
generally, we feel like we interchange that, R and I.
I think different people with different thinking and learning styles, and also different people from different cultures, are stronger and more confident and more comfortable at one level or another. And depending on the way your brain works and the way your intuition, for that matter, the way your intuition and your emotion works, you may find it more or less easy to distinguish between reflective and interpretive, or for that matter, between interpretive and decisional, or between objective and reflective. We all think and behave slightly differently, but at least according to the model, we do all go through these 4 phases of process, and we go through them in that order. The way I think about the difference is that between reflective and interpretive is precisely what you say. The reflective is about what goes on in here, the emotional response, the intuitive or associational response, whereas the interpretive is about what goes on in here, the intellectual interpretive response.
Yes, that's very interesting. And Martin, your work in the development sector, you have been doing a lot of work in the development sector, and you also been working with corporates. So how do you find both are different or same?
So I've worked a little bit with corporates, much less actually. Most of my work has been with non-profits, international and local charities and voluntary organizations, but also the public sector, local, national, and international public sector. To be honest, my experience is that most groups of people are pretty similar to other groups of people across culture, across sector, across country. Human process is, of course, there are differences, but the essence of human process, the essence of facilitation, in my experience, is very similar. You get very similar dynamics, regardless of the sector, regardless of the culture or the organizational culture that you're working with. What people have in common, I think, is much more than what people, than how people are different.
Right. So ultimately, all are human beings, right? That's where it all boils down to.
Yeah. And I work a lot with international groups, and therefore with multicultural groups. But in fact, a lot of the local groups that I work with are also multicultural, all over the world. I'm sure in India, just as in the UK and many other places, many of our groups are multicultural. I mean, I know how multicultural India was even in the 80s when I was there, because it's a tapestry of Indian culture, quite apart from any culture from beyond India that is also present there. The same is true all over the world now. There are I'm not sure that you can ever say that you have a group that's not multicultural. The question is, what is the diversity of culture that you have in your group?
Yep. Okay. Yep. Rather than asking, is there a diversity? Like say, like what extent your group is diverse? That will be appropriate.
Exactly.
Great. And Martin, for someone who has joined IAF, for example, I joined IAF 3 years back, and now I am pursuing my professional development path. Similarly, people are also associated with ICA. So how one can develop their professional competency or their professionalism in ICA and IAF? What are all the avenues available?
So the avenues are a little different. I mean, there are avenues for professional development both through ICA and IAF. The avenues and for ICA and IAF, I suppose I can speak mostly. I can speak best for the UK and to a lesser extent the European context. My knowledge of the rest of the world is much less up to date than it used to be. But in general, ICA does provide facilitation training, and I do very much. I'm a little biased, but I do very much recommend ICA's facilitation training. Most of which is in ICA's own top methodology, but some ICAs provide training in other things as well. in particular in Asia, I think, certainly Taiwan, possibly India too. I know ICA India provides top training. I'm not sure if they provide other training as well. ICA Nepal provides all sorts of training as well as facilitation training. In the UK, ICA UK just provides facilitation training, top facilitation training. So through ICA, you can develop your facilitation expertise by developing with top methodology. You can also train as a trainer of ICA's top training courses through ICA. In the UK, we do not offer a certified top facilitator accreditation, but some ICAs do. Certainly in Taiwan and Australia and one or two other places in Asia and in the US and Canada. In IAF, I think the options for professional development are broader in that there are a multitude of different approaches to facilitation that you can take, and IAF encompasses all of them, or at least its members encompass all of them. IAF doesn't provide training itself, but it accredits other people's training. What I do encourage all new facilitators to do, if they're looking to improve their facilitation practice, is to connect with other facilitators and learn from them one way or another. And IAF provides an invaluable opportunity to do that. I know that IAF India is very active in its local hubs and conferences and so on. I don't know if you do meetups in the same way that we do in the UK and Europe, but in England and Wales, we have very regular meetups in different cities in England and Wales, and also online every month. And they're open to non-members as well as members. We use it as an opportunity to provide a service to the whole of the facilitation community and enable them to meet each other, connect and learn from and with each other. And that's where I would encourage everybody to start, really. And if you find that valuable, then go ahead and become a member of IAF and take advantage of the more formal learning opportunities like the mentoring, the accreditation and certification, maybe taking training from ICA or from other training providers, and of course, books and online resources. There are so many routes that you can go.
Yep. So even in India, we do that, Martin. We have hubs. You know that every city has got hubs, and that way we have got 7 hubs. And every month we meet. It's we make it face to face to ensure like there is a connection, personal connection. We open it up for non-members as well, so that those who are yet to become member, that is an opportunity for them to know more about IAF and can come closer to IAF.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good.
And IAF has got a very clear professional development path, like member, then you become a EF, then CPF, then CPF master, then CPF emeritus. So how is that in ICA? Do we have a path like this, or it's CTF?
Yes and no. There is a trainer path, in a similar way, for becoming a top trainer.
Yeah.
So, for example, the ICA UK top trainer. The other thing I need to say about ICA is that ICA is a very bottom-up organization. So the ICA International is like a federation of NGOs around the world, and each of the national ICAs, to some extent, decides for itself how to operate within some constraints. But the way of working within ICA is not as consistent all over the world as it is within IAF. IAF has one professional development pathway. ICA has multiple pathways. The UK one, I mean, they're not all entirely different, but they're subtly different in some ways. The ICA UK training journey involves firstly taking the training as a participant. Then if you're interested to become a trainer, you come back and take the training a second time as a participant, but what we call a participant observer, which means that you also participate in the preparation for the training with the trainers and debriefing on the training with the trainers. So you get to observe the training process as well as being a participant a second time. And then after doing that a couple of times, you can become a trainee trainer, which means that you take a few discrete, relatively minor training roles during the trainer. And then once you've reached a certain level of competence, we have a competency framework, which is the basis of the trainer's journey. Once you've reached a certain level of competence, you then become a co-trainer.
Right.
And once you've achieved full competence, you can become a lead trainer, and then you can mentor other trainers. So it's kind of similar to the CPF process, but it's directed to being a trainer of ICA's top methodology rather than being a facilitator. The certified top facilitator process is similar but different to the IAF process. One of the ways that it's different is that mentoring is built into it, whereas in IAF mentoring is an option, but it's not a requirement.
Yep.
The CTF competency framework includes top competencies as well as all of the generic competencies that the IAF framework has. And the other difference is that there's only one CTF level. You're either a certified top facilitator or you're not, whereas in IAF we began with just CPF, certified professional facilitator, but now we have also the CPF master, the CPF emeritus,
Yep.
and also the endorsed facilitator, which is a lower bar to meet as well. So there are multiple options within IAF, and you can choose to go from one to the next, or you can choose to start at whichever level you feel yourself ready for.
Yep, great. No, in fact, as a person who started my EF journey, like I got certified as a endorsed facilitator recently, and I had a good opportunity to be mentored by Larry Philbrook. So I utilized that. I utilized that opportunity to. Yeah, yes. So fortunately, I could get him as my mentor, and I utilized that opportunity. Yeah.
So Larry Philbrook is the intersection of IAF and ICA personified.
Yeah.
There are a few others, but not many others these days who have such a long history in both organizations.
Exactly. And when you were telling about Taiwan doing this ICA work, I was recalling only Larry Philbrook and ICA training. Yes, Larry come to India very frequently. He comes to Pune. Like there is a center, ICA center there. Yes. So there we conduct top methodology training. Martin.
Yeah? Indeed. And Shankar Jadhav, who I think continues to provide top training for ICA India. He was among the first people I met and worked with in India in 1986. He was there then, and he's there still.
Yep. Yes, he's very active, and I am one of the fortunate persons to get trained under ORED by Shankar Jadhav. It was a very brief orientation that he gave. So that was the first initiation to ORED by Shankar Jadhav.
Very good.
Yes. And finally, Martin, like there are new members who are joining IAF, and there are many people, those who aspire to join IAF. So what is your message for them? What's in it for me message for them? Why I should join IAF?
What I tend to say, first of all, is you should not join IAF necessarily. You should start to get involved, first of all, because much of what IAF offers is available for free to non-members as well as members. I'm not sure if today's board would appreciate me saying this, but this is what I say. And over time, I'm confident that you will find IAF to be of enormous value because of the community it provides, as well as the professional development opportunities, the more formal professional development opportunities. The community provides immense opportunity for informal learning and support. I'm confident that most facilitators, when they discover the value to be had from connecting with their professional community, they will want to be on the inside of it, not to be on the outside of it. And they will be asking us, how can I join? Because I want to be part of this. So just get involved and decide for yourself if it's valuable for you. But I'm confident that facilitators will find it of value, and they will. They'll be asking how they can get more involved.
Sure. And you feel, you say like, let it be more organic. Let people come, watch IAF, then become part of IAF. Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. Exactly.
And once you decide you want to be more involved in IAF, I would urge you, I'd urge any facilitator to volunteer, get as involved as you can. Get involved in organizing meetups where you live, or collaborating with other IAF colleagues to put on a session at your annual conference in your region, or at International Facilitation Week. Get involved with one of the global teams. There are so many ways that you can get involved, online or face to face, even if there's nobody close to you. And by volunteering, by contributing to the community and to the profession, you will get so much more out of it than simply by benefiting from services. The more you put in, the more you get out, really.
Sure, Martin. Yeah, I would watch for that. In addition to the professional development part of IAF, for which you have to be a member, the volunteering opportunity that you get, that's amazing. Like, now I got an opportunity to lead the Global Facilitation Week this year, which I am currently doing, which you are celebrating from May 12th to 18th of 2025. And, the leadership exposure that you get to hone yourself as a better leader, that's amazing. Like, that is one of the single most benefit, I would say, like, for being part of IAF.
Absolutely. If that's not enough, I mean, I would also add that being, well, as a facilitator, my experience is that the vast majority of my work, if not all of my work as a facilitator and as a facilitation trainer, comes from personal connection and personal recommendation. Either people who've seen me work and experienced me working, and they come back for more, or they recommend me to others. But people that you meet through IAF and through other channels like that, when they get to know you and work together with you, they will recommend you. They will refer their clients to you. I've had lots of work that way, and I share work that way with others as well that I meet through IAF. It's a very generous community, and the way to get work as a facilitator, as well as to get better as a facilitator, is to be connected with people and to be known. What better way to get known than to connect with your professional community?
Exactly. Yeah. The community bonding is something amazing in IAF. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, Martin. So thanks a lot for your time and sharing your insights with us for LeadFact Solutions. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.